Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for my review of Ninjago Season 11, Episode 12, Under Siege. The episode begins with Wu finishing his tale, and the ninja and Pixel are all pretty shocked that Wu could make such a mistake, especially Kai, who is the most angry due to his powers having been taken away by them. Anyways, then Endings 2.0 begins, as the Fire Fang and Asphira are now marching on the monastery. So the ninja there try to resist them, however things are not going so well. They deduce that Clutch Powers and the Explorer Club has the second scroll. So the ninja and the city go to visit Clutch Powers in the hospital, who is still lazy and totally not acting like his movie self, and they get no help from him whatsoever. Meanwhile, the ninja at the monastery are forced to seek refuge in the new Samurai X cave. And while they're there, Kai forgives Wu for making that mistake and bonds with him, giving him a hug actually. So I love how the premise of this episode was basically a lot like Endings, but it was very unique in its own way and definitely did change things up. I like the whole siege aspect of the episode, with the ninja having to use various weaponry in order to resist the serpents, but ultimately failing and being forced to make their final stand in the Samurai X cave. I thought that Kai's extension of his powerless story was also cool, although I do have a few issues with it. I think we really are starting to see the old Kai back, the one who did bond with Wu a lot, and I thought that scene was very touching at the end. I also think that Char is, again, one of the funnier parts of the season, and he continues to be so in this episode. I love the line "revenge in a minute," and also when he is blathering and Asphira pretty much tells him to shut up. I thought that was very funny. This episode also gave us some amazing character moments for not just Kai, but Wu also. I've been comparing Wu's development in this episode to his development in Season 7, and I still stand by that statement. Basically, he makes a mistake, and that impacts everyone, and throughout the entire duration of the season, or in this case, the episode, he is pretty much tortured by it. But also, I think his development is basically Season 7, but more extreme, and it also involves Kai, one of the ninja too. So that makes his development even cooler in a sense, although I gotta say, I really did love a Season 7 development. Wu was honestly the best aspect of Season 7, so it is hard to top that. But I think his development in this episode was very, very cool too. And he had some great bonding moments with Kai that are definitely very sweet also. I instantly knew that we were in for a surprise when Clutch Powers was back. This guy was awful in episodes 5 and 6, and honestly the worst aspect, or one of the worst aspects, of this season so far. This guy is basically nothing like his movie version. He's just lazy and a complete doofus in Ninjago, and he wants nothing to do with exploring. He's not funny either, so that does not help matters either. So, I mean, honestly, seeing this guy back in this episode was terrible. As soon as he was injured and sent to the hospital, I was pretty much relieved because I had been thinking that he would be out of the equation. And while I know that he doesn't appear in any episode past this, it just made the scene pretty bad to see him back. Just treating the hospital like a hotel, and it's just so bad. I mean, it's just not even funny, a waste of the ninja's time, and I didn't like it at all. It's just nothing like his movie version, and I would expect to see some form of exploration or some desire to at least do your job. I mean, I don't think this was good at all, and Clutch Powers is just honestly one of the low points of the season, so I hated seeing him back, and in a pretty pointless scene too, that just wasn't funny at all. Now, a few issues with the Kai development. I honestly think this is a big problem with the 11-minute format in general, and I'm not a fan of this format, and I will go more into detail in another video. I just feel like the 11-minute format does not help character development arcs, and it's more like this arc has to start in this episode and end in the same episode, such as Kai's powerless arc from episode 9, starting and ending in that same episode. Now we have Kai who is angry, and starting and ending in the same episode, just a sudden anger at Wu. And while I do feel that it does go hand in hand with Kai being the hot-headed ninja, I feel like this was a bit too quick, and it is ultimately a problem of the 11-minute episode for just making this development way too quick. So I really loved how this episode was basically a reinvention of Endings, and it reinvented it while also adding new things too, such as the whole siege aspect and the ninja having to take shelter in the monastery while the attack rages on. Now, talking about some of the characters that also stood out, I thought that Char was pretty funny in this episode. He also kind of stood out to me in Powerless as well, but I really loved the whole revenge in a minute thing. And also, I think, obviously, this episode focuses heavily on Wu and Kai, and the bonding and relationship between them is really nice to see focused on once again. Now, also talking about a character that stood out in a bad way, Clutch Powers. This guy is terrible, and honestly worse than he was in the other 2 episodes he appeared in. I honestly don't feel like he should have been in this episode at all, and he really shouldn't be in this season in the first place. So that's a big thumbs down from me. So the action of this episode was very, very creative, and I think they did a great job with it. I forgot to mention earlier, but this episode is not just a recreation or reinvention, I should say, of endings, but also episode 70 from Hands of Time, The Attack. That episode was certainly forgettable, but also another Siege-like episode we have seen, although this one approached it very differently, and I thought that was very cool. Instead of seeing your standard person-to-person fighting, we saw more creative and different ways in which the ninja were trying to hold off the pirate snakes. The main example would be the water cannons and the ninja stars that were thrown at Char. I felt like this episode was great because it thought outside of the box. Instead of just using standard fighting, it used other ways in which the two sides were fighting each other. So I thought that that was cool, and it was a nice reinvention of past Siege episodes that we have seen. I also enjoyed when Asphira and Char were ransacking the temple, and again, just the playful relationship with Char and Asphira and how she pretty much tells him to shut up. And also the tension building up while Wu and the ninja were underground in the caves, while Asphira and the snakes were getting one step closer to finding them and ending it all. And of course the emotion of this episode, a very touching story with Kai and Wu, and it was very, very sweet. I felt like that hug was also done very, very well, although the story did have its own issues, such as the 11-minute format, kind of rushing it. I still feel like it was very sweet nonetheless. All in all, I did enjoy this episode, so I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I do not feel like it was better than Ancient History or Powerless or the backstory episode, but I feel like it was creative in its own way. However, there were some things that held it back, such as Clutch Powers making a return, and that pretty much just being an entire pointless scene of Clutch Powers trying to kick the ninja out of the hotel, or hospital I should say. He treats it like a hotel, in reality it is a hospital. But yeah, anyways, I do feel like this was a good episode, and I love the whole siege aspect of it. It was a great setup for the next 2 episodes as well. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with anyone ever you know, and let me know what you guys thought of episode 12 Under Siege. Once again, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.